application of ontology design patterns in the development of subject ontologies for multidisciplinary representation of corporate knowledge. That basically how I was operating on the same exact set of text, using ontology as one of the approaches in my master thesis. One of the foundations of the ontology transition to high automated technologies in Industry 4.0 is the resilience on knowledge engineering. And this process implies that the company has a unified strategy for formalizing, processing, and further using of corporate knowledge. And effective methods of representing knowledge is the process in semantic modeling, which relies on ontology design procedures, the implementation of ontological design, and a time-consuming task that requires the use of productivity improvement mechanisms. Since the creation of subject ontologies is a complex and time-consuming task, a way to simplify the creation of ontologies are being actively developed. And one effective approach is to use patterns of ontological design called ODP, so Ontology Design Patterns. And it allows us to create the resulting ontology by merging individual fragments created on the basis of unified elements. This approach accelerates the process of ontological design, but requires solving the problem of integrating the components of the created ontology. And this solution is related to the elimination of ambiguity in the representation of information about objects in ontological design. And such ambiguity can be both terminological and conceptual in nature. This is due to the fact that various experts from elements of common ontological design based on their own vision of this phenomenon. And the purpose of this research is to develop approaches of overcoming the semantic heterogeneity of ontologies, of ontology elements to ensure semantic interpretability and multidisciplinary knowledge description in information system using the ODP patterns. And research objectives is to determine the limits of applicability of ODP and determination of possible processes of applying ODP technology in the creation of a unified involving corporate knowledge description system. ODPs are documented description of proven solution of an ontology modeling problems. To date, a significant number of diverse patterns have been created for building ontologies, which can be divided into several groups. First of all is presentation ODPs. This is the patterns that define the rules of annotating and naming the ontology elements. Concept ODPs, there's patterns that fragment ontologies. Structural ODPs, it's to define the overall structure on the ontological description, and it allows us to overcome the barrier within transferring and holding the different knowledge represented in different languages in one ontology. And lexicosemantical ODPs, that's the patterns that defines objects and relations in a natural language based on which ontology fragments are described. And correspondence ODPs and reasoning ODPs, this is the additional patterns that can provide results of logical inference or integrate the ontology description with other languages. Today's practice of using disparate information system are based on the creation of best practices templates for specific technological processes. The paradigm on the slide describes the sequence of creating a system for supplementing the description of corporate knowledge from the moment of the translation to centralized description of corporate knowledge to the moment when such a system enters into regular operation. This assumes a fairly typical situation where a company has an existing heterogeneous information environment for processing corporate data, but lacks the central system for uniform knowledge description. And here we can see that, first of all, we need to create a basic structure of corporate knowledge space. It's not always very easy because a lot of companies tracking their knowledge differently in each and single department. Then we need to create the patterns for the libraries and dictionaries that are used for describing the knowledge. Then we need to generate the basic corporate ontology. Then we need to customize content with ontology design patterns. And only then we can expand our company ontology with a new knowledge. The generating a basic ontology for corporate knowledge space involves creating the most general description of a manually agreed set of typical process and fundamental facts used to represent corporate technologies and describe the functioning of the specific company, including a basic ontology of subject area knowledge and set of basic ontologies for typical corporate processes, typical basic ontologies for tasks and methods, and basic ontology for corporate information resources. This can be done with following 5 steps, and the main stages creating this knowledge base are presented on the slide. The creation of the pattern libraries and dictionaries involves a set of procedures for organizing the generation storage and future use of information elements that made up this corporate ontology. First of all, we need to analyze the requirements for this storage, then develop the architecture proposal, then design and implement this storage, test and validate it, and then we can upload the real enterprise content in there. How the generation of basic corporate ontology works. First of all, we define the subject areas and scope of application, and then we collect and analyze the data and knowledge. Then we design the class hierarchy and define the class attributes and relationships between them. And in the end, we implement a formal representation of this ontology. Creating customized content with using the patterns faced the steps. First of all, we need to make sure that our concepts are defined unambiguously and very precise. Then we prove that set of terms and description are consistent. Then we clear hierarchical relationship between all the concepts. Then we prove that we follow in the consistency of these rules, the restriction and axioms, and we don't have any information that's really controversial to other piece of information in our storage, and we validate our system. About expansion of corporate ontology, it happens every time then new information is provided to the company. So it starts with a discovery of new information, then we verify the data for reliability. So it would not interfere with already existing data in the storage. Then we formate the ontological changes and validate the evolution of the ontology, and go into the management of ontology evaluation. How we can improve the consistency of subject description in lexicosemantic ontology design patterns is by following the steps. The diagram of proposed process is presented on the slides. So the source of information about concept description, an action, relationship, or specific phenomena that requires description in a corporate subject ontology is a document which, from the point of view of ontological design, is an object containing a number of interrupting semantic units intended to describe the phenomena in question, either directly or in conjunction with other documents. The information extracted from this document can only be adequately understood and correctly used in a limited number of specific points of the enterprise business process. And all this research led me to the conclusion that can be seen on the slide, that the greatest effectiveness of ontology design approaches based on ODPs, the ODP technologies, is achieved through the ability to involve many subject matters experts in the creation of ontological description using the universal schemas and tools for expanding and refining the basic corporate ontology. And that's it. I'm very pleasant to give a speech on this conference, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.